I'm James, and welcome to my presentation. So as a general outline, I'm going to share with you now what I'm going to be discussing with you over the next 10 minutes. The first part of this presentation, I'm going to share with you the reasons why I chose this topic. I'm going to share with you two studies that I read that really captivated my attention and drew my focus to this topic. And in the second half of the presentation, we're going to dive deep into my poster. We're going to look at the colors. We're going to look at the pictures. We're going to look at the fonts and the text. And hopefully by the end, you'll be able to understand the ideas, the concepts, and the feeling that I was trying to convey and express. So with that, let's take a look at the reasons why I chose this particular topic. The first study that I came across was a study from 2018, and it was published by the NHS. So every single year, the NHS conducts a wide-scale survey of people here in England, and they ask them general questions about their health and their lifestyle. What caught my attention was the title of this particular study, which said the health survey reveals an association between parent and childhood obesity. So that really piqued my curiosity. So when I delved into the particular study, the first thing I noticed were certain sets of statistics. The first statistic that really jumped out at me was the one in the middle, actually, where it said approximately 1/3, 30% of the children aged 2 to 15 in England in 2017 were obese. Now, I don't know which part of this statistic alarmed me more, whether it was the 30%, 1 out of 3, or whether it was the fact that we were dealing with an age range from 2 to 15. I really couldn't believe that even at the age of 2, we were already starting to see obesity set in. To me, that was absolutely startling. So once I saw that, I began to really dive deeper into this particular article, and right above it, I saw another statistic. It said 28% of children of an obese mother were also obese. Compared that with 8% of children whose mother was not overweight or obese. So what this is simply stating is that when the mother was obese, 28% of the time, the child was obese. When the mother wasn't obese, only 8% of the time, the child was obese. And you see the same thing with the dad. When the dad was obese, 24% of the time, the child was obese. When the dad was not obese, only 9% of the time, the child was obese. Now, these numbers are overwhelming. There's a stark distinction between these two sets of numbers, 28 and 8 and 24 and 9. It's indicative of the fact that these children who are born into homes with obese parents are really in an environment, they're at an extreme disadvantage when it comes to maximizing their potential physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And then I went down and then I read this statistic, and this statistic actually bothered me more than the other two statistics, where it said that around half the parents, 47 for the mom, 52 for the dad, so let's just call it an even 50%. 50% of these parents who are raising obese children did not see anything wrong with the weight of their child. To me, that is just unbelievable. And again, it conveys the idea that possibly the problem, the real origin of the problem isn't with the children, it's with the parents. Then I read this particular article. It was released back in 2005. It was published in June of 2005, and it was titled Early Life Risk Factors for Obesity in Childhood. Now, a brief summary of this particular study. They were just trying to find if there were any factors that they could use to help them predict whether a child was going to be obese. And in fact, when you look at the results and the conclusion, they did. They found that there were 8 factors in the life of a young child that really served as a predictor of whether or not they were going to be obese or not. And the very first factor that they listed was when the child was being raised by obese parents. Now, I don't know why they listed it first, but again, it conveys the fact that when it comes to combating childhood obesity, we need to look further up the family tree with the parents. And following that idea, let's move into part 2 with my poster. I really wanted to continue with that theme of a family tree. So as you can see here with my poster, several things I'm hoping pop out at you. The first thing that I hope pops out at you is I wanted people to feel like they were looking at a Stephen King movie poster. I want people to immediately feel like they're looking at something sinister, something nefarious, something wrong is going on here. And so when I put obesity in the text in there, I chose a font called Chiller. It looks very scary. It looks like something you'd see in a horror movie. And then I chose the color red because red is very indicative of blood. When you see red, typically you think of horror movies, you think of, blood against the wall or something like that, like in Stephen King's It, where Stan wrote it in his own blood on the wall. I kind of wanted to convey that same idea. Even with the background, I used a tree to convey the idea of a family tree, but I used a very witchy, sinister looking tree, not a healthy looking tree. And I went with the expression, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now I'm sure this is an expression that you guys use here in England. We use it all the time in America. It's very similar to like father, like son. And so again, I just wanted to convey this idea that there's a close association. There's a definite correlation between parental obesity and childhood obesity. And then when you come down a little lower, I put the statistic where it said children with obese parents are 10 to 12 times more likely to be obese by the age of 7. Now again, I don't know what's more startling, the fact that they're 10 to 12 times more likely to be obese, or if they're more likely to be obese by the age of 7. It's very scary to think that our children, right when they're starting their life, at this young age, they're already having to deal with this disease of obesity. So over in the corner, you see the picture. I have a picture of a dad with his son eating, having a good time, but they're both clearly obese. And then you have this obese mother walking her obese daughter, showing again this close correlation. And then at the bottom you see this baby resting on the belly of his father, who's obviously obese, wondering what chance this baby has. But the picture that really captured me was the one above that. It's the one with the mother and daughter sitting in chairs across the room in this kind of very monochromatic light scheme. When I look at this picture, it's almost like the daughter is sitting there looking, gazing into the future at her fate, wondering, is there any way that I could escape this future for myself as well? It almost has a prophetic feel to it, but almost like a desperation. You can see with her hands on her legs as if she's just exasperated, afraid, anxious, because she looks across the room and she sees herself and she doesn't want it to be, and she's looking for a way out. And then you come across and then you see the pictures of these children with just despair on their face. You see this poor young boy with just these sad eyes because of all the anxiety that comes with the obesity. You see down at the bottom this poor young little boy who's clearly obese, and you can just see the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's already dealing with a psychological, emotional stress and trauma because of all of the side effects that obesity brings with it, from the inability to be physically active, to making it harder to make friends, to just health problems. And he's incurring all of this probably because of the influence of his parents. What I'm hoping is conveyed through this poster is just the idea that there's just something really sinister, sad, very scary about the fact that these children are being brought into a world and into a culture in which they're being destroyed before they even get a chance to really begin to experience their potential. And so I'm hoping that when parents see this, maybe they'll stop and take a look at the choices that they're making. Hopefully the parents will be moved to really do some self-reflection and consider how their choices are impacting the future of their children, and maybe they will start making different choices, which will help these children have a much healthier, happier life. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.